can bet your boots that you've actually quite enjoyed doing it. It's almost by definition that if it goes very slowly, you're usually bored.
What so I've gone around,
Yes.
and I've tried to make a list
Yes.
in my head, and I've top 5 on different things, and then I turn the corner, and I go, okay, no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I can't do it. So I then had to make it 2 lists.
Yeah.
So there's an aesthetic list and an emotional list.
Yeah.
And neither of those 2 things depend upon the other. So aesthetically, the urinal one is an A+.
Which one?
The urinal one.
Oh yes.
The one, the guy peeing in the urinal.
That's aesthetically.
Aesthetically, A+.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Emotionally, that picture, the breastfeeding one, is an A+ on that. It just made me.
You don't think aesthetically that's powerful?
No, I mean, what I mean by that is that if someone was to ask me what to direct them to, what I find aesthetically pleasing, or otherwise, with that's just emotionally, and because of the humour of that one, but it's for different things.
Yeah.
What I found is there's obviously a picture that exists for every sort of mood, and the voyeurism of this is quite an interesting thing, because what you ask people is like, their favourite picture or their favourite album or their favourite film or their favourite book. What you've done is presented a room of your brain. But what you like.
Yes.
And I think sometimes that can just ring true of the person you are than your actual own work. You can have a strong grasp on it.
I mean, one of the things that I deliberately did with this collection is that I asked for specific pictures. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the great merits of the picture is that the collection itself has authorship.
Yeah.
In other words, they are my choices. But I mean, in the case of some people, I mean, it sounds exaggerated, but it's true. I've looked through 10,000 pictures by that person, and I'm usually swapping, maybe 2 pictures or 3 pictures with somebody. So it's then an analysis, which is my analysis of what I like from somebody who's starting off as, in my opinion, a great photographer. Mm-hmm. So the characteristic about the whole thing here is that within a genre, and it is very much within a genre of photography, particularly genre of photography, these are 100 of the greatest photographers in the world. And then, so you can't really go wrong. I mean, the exhibition can't really be a flop. If you've got the 100 greatest photographers in the world, of which my guess is that their peers are going to agree with 80 of them.
Yeah, so you're going to get some good pictures.
So you can't miss out. And so you might say, well, that's not my favourite Kudelka picture, or that's not my favourite Philip Jones Griffiths picture, but that's personal opinion. Yeah. But what I think it's very difficult to do is to say that Philip Jones Griffiths is not a great photographer.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
What I find from walking around is that every single frame is respectful to the picture, which I'm surprised by. I've been to quite a few places where the smaller the image, the less appeal it has. So there was an expectation I was going to walk in and the biggest print would have the most, attention given to it. But with this, it's like every image is given its own space to sort of breathe.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, I think we got a little bit carried away. See, there weren't things like photo galleries until 68, 70. And then when the photo gallery came about, that moved photography. The value of the individual print when I first started, and when I just used to go and ask people for pictures, I didn't have the arrogance to go up to customers and say, "Do you want to swap the print?" I was 22 years of age, So at that time, the value of a print was whether you could get it published. And so you've got this bit of paper, which is a print, which after all print is a bit of paper, that was worth 50p or something that you get at the local thing. When the galleries started coming, you artificially put onto that a value, that the business, which is owning a gallery, which is a business like any other shop, you know, they're trying to sell something. And one of the ways that they decided they could sell it to merchant bankers have big offices with big walls, is to make big print. You know, so there's a logic to all this thing, which is neither good or bad. It's bad if, in my opinion, it's bad if you end up just making 5-edition prints for merchant bankers, because that negates what I think is one of the wonderful things about photography, is that it's infinitely reproducible. So I think the additioning of prints to small numbers is a negative from my point of view. If some merchant banker wants to pay, you know, 10,000 quid for a print which is very big, why not?
Yeah.
You know, it is after all a business. Let's not pretend. You know, the best photographers, that's their job. That's what they do. It's no different from being a plumber, except that it's probably more fun. And perhaps you have this slight advantage that in certain circumstances your work retains of interest for the next couple of 100 years, you know. But it's a job. And I think people should realise that more and not get too pretentious about it.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what I find funny about today in general, is the fact that this whole exhibition, for me, seems to be about intimacy.
Yeah.
That's what documentary photography really is. It's
at its best, it is. Absolutely.
At its worst, it's 5 meters away.
Yeah.
You know, trying to be intimate.
Yeah.
But it's really funny to me than seeing you getting photos taken of you with flashes on it, and that distance, and the sort of removal of intimacy of that. Like with an exhibition like this, it's about that silence, it's about that intimacy, it's about breathing in a picture and trying to live in that moment. Do you find that difficult?
No. Well, you see, I think what you're saying is quite perceptive, but I come from an era, and a lot of these pictures are from an era when people actually used to talk to each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I often jokingly, when people are talking about Twitter and Facebook, I say, to me, if I have a friend, I need to be able to smell him. You know. Now, there is a difference between being able to smell your friend and it being on a computer screen. You know. I'm not suggesting one is better than the other. I don't understand the other. I don't understand the fun of tweeting or whatever it is to your friends. You know, I don't have a Facebook account. I don't have that. But because I love the idea that if I physically needed to, I could touch you. That to me is pleasurable. But it perhaps is a different era. So I find that particularly young people now, they seem to have enormous problems actually pointing at the camera at other people and photographing people. I don't know whether that's good or bad. They might argue that, you know, because of privacy and all that sort of stuff. Fine. It's not how I am about it. I mean, I'm curious, I'm nosy. I want to try to clarify for myself what is happening in the world out there. I'm not trying to be a propagandist or anything. I'm just a recorder of that I find interesting. And then I will show what I find interesting to somebody else, and I hope that they also find it interesting. And in a perfect world, that person that finds it interesting will find it interesting enough to want to buy it. And that's lovely, because then it gives me the money to go next week and shoot some more pictures. But there is difference, and the majority of these pictures, as you rightly say, are to do with people interested in other people. They're not particularly interested in themselves. They will have what we call authorship, because of the type of subject matter they're interested in, you know. And there's no doubt that if you see 10 pictures by Cartier-Bresson, you can tell they're by Cartier-Bresson, in the same way as if you look at 10 Rembrandt paintings, you can tell they're by Rembrandt. Within photography, that's very puzzling, because we've all got the same tools. You know, we've all got a box with a hole in the front. It can never be more than that. You know, Fox Talbot's visual camera was a box with a hole in the front. But you do get this thing of authorship, but this exhibition, as you rightly say, is about those intimate. I like that, obviously. You know, I have collected that. There aren't too many pictures of the sides of buildings here. You know, I think Rodri is probably the only picture that's here. And why is that here? Was because I think he does what he does extremely well, and it happens that he photographs the sides of buildings primarily. Oh, and there's a picture by Mark Power, which is the blue things hanging from a ceiling in a factory or something. But most of the pictures here are of observations of people. That's my...
What it's made me think is, wouldn't some of these pictures even be possible now?
Oh, of course.
But what I mean is, like, I've talked to photographers from my generation who have a lot more, they're a lot stricter about just going out and taking photos of people.
Why?
I don't know, it's that privacy thing, it's that trying to be personal.
It's because they haven't done it enough to get used to the idea of doing it. And they go out and they're not used to communicating with people, therefore they say, oh, that can't be done.
Yeah.
But if they work as I did, 10 hours a day, every bloody day, as I used to say, the most important thing I have is good shoes, you know. If you do that, I give you an instance. I'm very, very friendly with a pianist called Daniel Barenboim. You might or might not know him, but he's considered a great concert pianist. And I remember asking him, because he's about the same age as that, when we were both pretty young, you know, Daniel, what is the essence of being a concert pianist? He said, David, you play the piano a lot. Well, it's the same with photography. If you take lots and lots of pictures, you suddenly find that it's not that difficult to learn strategies, to have confidence, all those sort of things, to learn to control your camera, so that working with people is easy. But you can't do it by just suddenly popping out and saying, oh, it's a bit difficult. Tell me it's a bit difficult when you've shot every day for a year. I suggest that if you shot every day for a year, you would start finding it easier. Therefore, in the second year, you might start shooting some pictures. Yes. Now, it might be that I, now sounding like my dad, maybe it is a different cultural era, and that people nowadays are more concerned with what they call privacy and things like that. I don't know. It's just that for anybody to say to me, you can't do that anymore, I say, no, well, I say, come out with me tomorrow. Yeah. I will be going out tomorrow shooting the same pictures that I've been shooting for 62 years.
I think it's, I think if you want to do it, you're able to do it.
Well, you're able to do it if you learn to do it. If you sit down with the piano, it's easy to say, oh, I can't play a tune, I'm not going to play the piano anymore. But the answer is if you sit down every day for a year with the piano, at the end of that year, I promise you'll play better than you did at the beginning. So why should photography be any different?
What I found the problem with learning a craft is inherently you've got to be all right. There's got to be something there for you to explore it further.
Yeah.
So, do you remember the first picture you took where you think, that's all right, that is?
Well, I mean, I've always seen photography, the actual taking the picture, as simply being an extension of an interest. Mm-hmm. So when I started, I was interested in people and the way they react to each other. One of the first things that I did was to go to Hungary because I didn't know what a revolution was about. You know, and I was 22 and I hitchhiked and went to Hungary in the revolution. The pictures are the after thing of being interested in the revolution. If you're interested in the revolution and you see people kicking each other or shooting each other, etc., it's not that difficult to realise that if you then take a picture of it, it might have some significance. But it has significance because you're interested in the phenomenon of being a revolution. And that to me is what photography is about. You have to have the curiosity, the interest, you have to put in the research, you have to care about your subject matter. If you care about your subject matter and you respect it and try to understand about it, then you have a pretty good chance of getting a reasonable picture from it. That's why to me, tomorrow is not a problem. I know that tomorrow will be different from today, and I will find things there that I find interesting. I know that I've got 62 years of skill of being able to take a photograph of that interest. That's what it's about. And that's what I love doing. And whilst I can physically still do it, because that's the biggest problem I have now, is that, you know, I ache a lot. You know, I'm sitting down on this thing. When I go to get up, I am not going to be able to get up in the way you do without thinking about it. I'm going to get up thinking about it.
I don't know, I might be thinking about it as well.
Maybe, but that's the difference. And so, you know, my attitude is to understand that and to deal with it, and therefore it doesn't become such a problem because I adapt to the solving of the problem. You know, some people, if they're in a position where there's a problem, give up. I don't give up. You know, I think, how do I solve this problem? How do I solve it? And that's part of the fun. Part of the fun is that very often it's extremely difficult.
Some people do Sudoku, some people do word searches, you take photos.
I take, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I just love it. You know, I couldn't not have a camera with me because, you know, I get my camera and I shall now, if I can get it to work, take a picture of it. Now, I won't remember your name, but on my little contact sheet, I'm not going to say this is the world's greatest portrait ever taken, but at least I will remember that, oh, there was that young person who we had a nice conversation with, and it will remind me of that thing. And so that's why I always have a camera with me, and why I use it for all sorts of things, some of which is what I would call Dear Diary. Some of it, pretentiously, is a little bit more profound than I think. You know, the problem is whether somebody else does. but I, you know, one of the things as you get older, you realise you don't really care what other people think too much.
Did you, with this swapping of pictures, was it ever a concern of you to appear that you're saying, I'm as good as you? Was that originally the worry?
Well, you see, when I first did it, I was at the time, as I said before, where there were no such things as galleries. Therefore, the piece of paper, which we call a photograph, actually had no value in itself, other than if it was published in a magazine.
Okay.
So the only value when I first started and got people to give me pictures was the cost that it did to make the print, which at that time was negligible. You know, it cost virtually nothing. I would not, at the age of 22, having, you know, shot pictures for 6 months, felt that I could go up to Cartier-Bresson and say, do you want to swap a print? I mean, it would be ludicrous.
Yeah.
Absolutely ludicrous. It would be so arrogant and so silly. When I was asked to come into Magnum, because to get into Magnum, you get invited into Magnum, you suddenly realise you're being asked by the people you probably think are the greatest photographers. You know, so when I went into Magnum, you know, the Cartier-Bresson was still alive, and Elliot Erwitt was there, and Bruce Davidson, and Eric Glenn. These people were there, and you suddenly realise, hang on, these people are inviting me to be part of their club. that gives you a kind of confidence. You know, they must think at least I can get my bloody pictures in focus. You know, otherwise they wouldn't be inviting me. You know, so they're respecting me enough to invite me. That then gives me the confidence to feel that perhaps other people might think I'm quite good. In which case, then I have the confidence to swap. So I didn't start swapping pictures until I came into Magnum.
It's a funny attitude, because I've got more of the Groucho Marx thing,
Yes.
which is that you don't want to be part of a club that asks you to join.
Well, I think it's a very funny remark, but you know, it's a very witty remark.
Yeah.
But I promise you that I have never been more proud in my life than when I was invited to America, because I was seeing the people I thought were the best in the world, and they were saying to me, you know, come and be part of it, which is not only to do with your work, but Magnum is very much an organisation which relies on its brand name of integrity, and I hope that if you meet the Magnum photographer, you feel that if he says something, he's going to do it. You know, and that's one of the reasons it's been so successful, is that people trust it. You know, people will allow us to do things that they won't allow anybody else to do it. You know, I mean, I just, you know, 2 weeks ago was over photographing Jane Fonda, who's a dear friend, but it's her 80th birthday this year. You know, and she doesn't now, you know, let people. You know, she's 80. Photograph her. The reason that she said yes was because she trusted me. Mm-hmm. You know, she has this absolute trust. So that's very important. Very, you know, to build up that trust, to build up that sense of integrity, that you don't do things just because it's a commercial way of doing it, you know. That brings with it problems, particularly when you're young. You know, it's much more difficult when you need the money to, etc., etc., etc. And all these are problems we have to solve, you know. Luckily, I don't have to solve the problems anymore. You know, they're solved a long time ago. But I promise you I had them. You know, exactly the same problems.
So this exhibition is beautiful.
Thank you very much.
It's great. It's a great collection of stuff.
Yeah.
And no, I'm excited about it. So
Good,
I wonder
good.
how you feel.
No. Well,
Very excited.
what I'm most excited by is that this is genuinely, and this might sound arrogant, this is, you really don't get a better show than this. You know, you might have a show of one person, which you like very much. You might have a show on a theme, you know, loneliness or something. But this is 100 of the greatest photographers in the world. I think most photographers coming in here would agree that 80 of them, at least, are the greatest photographers in the world. Therefore, we're talking about having in Wales now not only a permanent gallery for photography, which is a beautiful gallery, it's exactly the right size for what we really need here, but it's a gallery which is starting at international standard. So the trick is now, how do we keep it at that standard? How do we stop, you know, somebody saying, oh, my son's got a couple of pictures, wouldn't you like it in your collection? The answer is no, we wouldn't. There should be other galleries in Cardiff showing that level. And when you get to the level of Ivan or Duba, who I'm just Tony Ray Jones, when you get to that, that's when you get into this particular thing. But we need to have one place, and this will be it, where young photographers can come and see the best work of its genre. I repeat, it's of a genre. This is not conceptual photography, although there are a couple of pieces by conceptual photography. But it's about as good as you can get. And if young people want to come see it, they can see what is the best. And it will be on 6 months, and then it'll change, and then there'll be another show of the same sort of stature. I think that's an asset. And I hope people agree with me.
Yeah, I think they will.
Good. Yeah. Lovely. Thank you very much.